So hi guys, we are with Utsav today. Utsav is a MICA alumnus. He's also a famous market researcher. He is
I'm famous. I know that. Thank you.
He
Ankit.
will
Thank you so
become
much.
famous soon.
Yes, after this course, I should become famous, right? I mean, what's the point otherwise?
He is from the land of Amul, and Utsav is helped us create this amazing module on
It is amazing, like totes amazing.
consumer market research. Let me be clear about this. This is consumer market research. This is not researching stocks for the stock market.
Yeah, please. I don't understand any finance. I barely manage my personal finance. So, yes, this is completely consumer market research, understanding what people do, why they do it, and how that helps companies make better products, build great brands.
So, Utsav, why don't you tell us, market researchers करते क्या है? मतलब, I've heard a lot about this, but
Right.
I mean, for example, when I see a product, what is that great contribution that you made?
Correct. So the thing is that, see, first of all, let me clarify this thing. Okay, market researchers are not the people who come to your house door to door and get service. Arey madam, survey भर दीजिए. Mall में घूम रहे हैं. Please survey, fill this survey. I need to get this. We don't hire college students to say, I'll stand on the road and get surveys. Yes, that is an important part of our work, but it's done very professionally. It's thought through a lot more. And you sometimes people have fun. Okay, let's have some fun. कुछ भी भर देंगे survey में. So for example, I remember this. We were doing movie research. There are times when movies are shot, and while before they go into post production, they sometimes come to us for testing. I actually test movies. I've tested songs. What a radio station should play. So no, I mean it's fun because I remember once we had done this research for a film. In fact, we've done it for 3 films, and one was so bad that we told them, don't even think about releasing it. Like, you will lose all your money. So we had played that film, and people were writing like brilliant things. Oh, this movie is brilliant, and this is path breaking. And when we looked at the rest of the survey, they have given like really, really low ratings. And we were wondering that why is this mismatch? And when we asked people that this doesn't make sense, you are saying contradictory things, and they said, यार इतनी खराब पिक्चर है, मैं क्यों सफर करूं? और लोगों को भी देखना चाहिए. मैं पागल हूँ 3 घंटे बर्बाद किए मैंने अपने. So these things happen, and you have to get around these things as a researcher.
But tell me, in your experience, or do you know of any product where market research has made like a tremendous difference, or some insight which has come out in one of the projects that you worked on?
So it's unfortunately not a project I had worked on because I was probably way too young. But it's amazing how a great insight can completely change the way we look at a product. Now, let me give you an example of condoms. Okay. Now, this was a time when the government was pushing family planning. We had an overpopulation problem. So, we went through this whole phase of a certain person decided to...
Aren't we still in that phase?
Well, I wish things have changed. No, but things have changed. If you look at census data over the years,
okay.
Average family sizes have come down, and our fertility rates have also come down. Which is a good thing, but we also are at a position where we are adding significantly to our population. But yeah, coming back to what happened with condoms, the government was promoting family planning. Make condoms very boring. They said like, हाँ आपको हम दो हमारे दो, and people made puns of it. हम दो हमारे दो जब तक तीसरा ना हो. So all those things were happening. But then suddenly, we got liberalized. We got a lot of influences. And as a society, we are very, very closed about talking about sex.
Right.
And that happens even today. I mean, it's not a conversation you're willing to have with your parents for sure. I mean, it's awkward for both of you. But around that time, Kama Sutra came in.
Right.
Okay. And they completely flipped the use of condoms. Rather than being about contraception and safety, they made it about pleasure.
Right.
And that was a point where condom usage, at least in the more urban educated classes, really started taking off. And that completely changed the category, and then only the international players of the Durexes of the world came in, and now things have changed significantly. So I think that's where market research can play a very beautiful role. So it's just not about doing surveys and group discussions and all those things. It's really about observing what's happening around you, what are the pop culture trends, how are things changing at a societal level, and combining all that to really give that killer insight.
That actually reminds me, a friend of mine, a batchmate of mine was, a brand manager of a condom brand, and he was saying that the latest research suggests that Indians are not having sex enough.
Shit.
And which is why condom sales are falling. That's one of the reasons they've
Yeah.
attributed to.
We should look at the course. We have something on Tinder. I mean, that sort of connects to what we're trying to say. But yeah, go on.
So, Utsav, the other really interesting thing around research is, politics, and
Yeah.
it's one of my favorite topics. How does this work? I understand that psephology is like an entirely different science.
Correct.
But as a market researcher, how do you ascribe the complete failure of so many supposed experts over
Right.
the last couple of years predicting elections across the world? In that sense, I think agencies like Today's Chanakya have done reasonably well in
Right.
back home here in India.
Right.
But why is there such a huge difference in? Is it got to do with the methodology, or is it that there is a complete disconnect between what's happening? What is your view on this?
Okay, very interesting and complex question actually. So, first of all, like any research which we do, even opinion polling and predicting the who's going to win the election is a predictive science. In any predictive science, there is a margin of error.
Right.
Okay. The question is, how do you control that margin of error that you do not go way off with the predictions? Okay. Now, for any opinion poll, the first and absolute basic thing is to get your sampling right. I mean, you can't obviously interview all people in all constituencies. It's just not possible, right? So not only you need to have a very good understanding of the state or the country you're looking to poll, because you need to ensure that it's representative, it takes all groups into account. What also matters is when are you doing your research. Now with politics, the way votes swing sometimes, just doing research at the right time matters. So just you might do it 2 weeks before polling, but within a week of polling, things could move drastically. There could be statements, there could be events which could change people's mind, right? So if you did it before that wave, your data is essentially messed up,
Right.
because it's not going to really predict the right thing. The other aspect which is very important to remember is that, okay, anytime you look at a poll, and if anyone tells you that, let's say the BJP or the Congress is going to win a certain fixed number of seats, just dismiss the poll right away. You cannot predict a single number. It is always a range.
Right.
It is always a range, and there is a very good reason for it. The second thing you need to remember is that what is, if I have to put it probably more simply,
But don't you think, I mean, these agencies would already be doing this, I mean, across the world, or you think that people aren't so rigorous about...
No, so what happens is, see, there are a lot of pressures. I mean, these are very, very time-sensitive surveys. They need to be done in a very, very short amount of time. So sometimes, agencies may cut corners, which of course affects the final impact. But so let's zoom out a little bit from India and look at the US elections. I mean, again, they are a very important event in the world, given how powerful US is as a country. And there is this person called Nate Silver, and he has this website called 543, and you should please check it out. It's a great website. And they have been into forecasting of elections, and they also do other stuff in sports. And in fact, they have the distinction of getting 2008 and 12 for Obama right for every single state. So they could really tell where the Democrats would win and the Republicans would win.
Right.
But even they got the 2016 Trump victory completely wrong. And those guys are considered the gold standard in opinion polling. So the question is, how could even they get it wrong? So that's the thing. In opinion polling, sometimes you have to be lucky, but at the same time, you need to interpret your data well. When I say that, I mean that, so for example, when you poll, you just get to know which person is going to vote for which party. Okay, but that just gives you vote share. Now that vote share needs to be converted to seat share. Now, not all seats are equal. There's varying degrees of population within a given seat. So what happens is that in this calculation of vote share to seat share, it requires a lot of experience, and at the same time it requires suspending your own biases and judgment. And sometimes with psephologists that becomes a problem, because they have their own biases encoded very hardly into their psyche.
So would you say that in some sense, like, politicians are actually far smarter than a lot of the really educated or people who are trained in these sciences, because they seem to do a lot of things right. In terms of managing booths, managing specific constituencies, and I've heard of things like there are dossiers created on every constituency in
Correct.
in-depth detail.
Right.
By, I mean, of course, political parties also hire people, but the fact that, they've got that entire organization going,
Right.
you think corporations can learn from them?
Oh, definitely. So, see, I think one of the biggest things which all corporations should remember is, and this is something even we are, and I have been guilty of as a researcher at some point, was, see, I come from an English educated background, and I can tell you that I'm easily top 5% of this country, right? The fact is, the people you're trying to understand.
Top 1%.
Actually, yeah, top 1%. And the people I'm trying to study are definitely not as privileged as me.
Right.
There is a huge disconnect between the way I live and the way they live.
Right.
And sometimes we do not have an understanding of that. Now, what politicians do really, really well, which a lot of psephologists and supposed election experts on TV don't, they do not interact with the masses. Now, you go to speak to a journalist today who covers the elections, and each one of them will tell you the best way to understand the pulse of a nation is to use public transport. To really go and see what people are talking about. And around an election, there is always a buzz. Just overhear conversations, have a conversation with anyone from a bus driver to a passenger sitting in the train to the TT of the train. And these guys will really tell you what the mood at the ground is.
But then obviously you can't, I mean, that can give you a pulse, but that's
Correct.
still, you can't look at, I mean, that's not empirical evidence.
No, it's not empirical evidence. But see, as with qualitative research, which we'll be covering in the course, it's just not about numbers. It's also about understanding context. It's also about understanding the mood of the nation. And that has to be seen in conjunction with numbers. So what we need to see is there is a symbiotic relationship which is present between the two.
So, I mean, then again, taking cue from this, given that maybe politicians do spend a lot more time on the ground.
Yes.
How do, organizations with people, sitting in AC rooms most of the times, someone who's trying to sell, say, something as small as candy or a cigarette.
Right.
Which mostly, I think, actually, a lot of consumer good products which are sold to almost everyone in the country today. How do they get their research so right? Is it the strength of the agencies that they,
right.
Or do you think that people who are, would you say that a brand manager should also spend time on the field, or is it that the CEO should also go out there and try and figure this out? Maybe how Amit Shah goes on the road and tries and understand what people really want. Is it that maybe the CEO of a large consumer good company also should from time to time spend a lot of time in the market? Or do they do that? What do you know about that?
So the thing is that one of the key things in succeeding in any people-driven business, where a large set of consumers are going to give you revenues and profits, is to have an ear to the ground. Okay. So even today, I mean, we insist that the brand managers and the consumer insight managers on the client side, they need to attend field work, right? You cannot appreciate the life of someone who lives in a chawl in Bombay or a slum in Delhi without entering their homes. Right? You can create fancy looking products with great propositions and really good looking advertising, but if it does not fit in the context of their lives, it's just going to bomb very badly. So it's actually, and all good brand managers always make it a point to connect with their consumers as much as possible. Yes, I mean, I would love them to do it more, but even if they do it through us in a more structured environment, it's still better than not knowing what your consumers are doing.
So switching track a little, getting into the process of market research, has it ever happened that you asked questions to respondents and people have gotten offended, or probably just got up and left saying, how can you ask me such a question, or it's too personal? Like, how do you manage? I'm sure there are certain questions that you're supposed to ask which may not be very something that we ask directly to people when we converse. So any incidents that you've come across?
Oh yeah, I mean, so many of them. So one of my favorite incidences is that I was doing some work in Myanmar. It's an emerging market, has opened up to the world only in the last 4 or 5 years. And we were interviewing the lady of the house, and I mean, it was a lower class household. And mid of the interview, we see the husband who was outside come in, and the moment he entered, we could clearly sense that he was drunk, right? And he thought that we were salesmen trying to sell some shit to his wife. He started abusing us left, right, center. I was very comfortable because I did not understand the thing he was saying. But my field team member who could obviously understand everything because he was from Myanmar, and he was like trying to pacify the guy down, and I'm like, let's just leave. This is not a place where we can continue an interview. I mean, so these things happen, yeah. And the fact is that please understand that even that incident gives me a lot of insight into that woman's lives. Look at the amount of stress and duress she's living in.
Right.
She probably even faces domestic violence at home. Right. So I need to understand the life. That tells me that what is the position in the household. Can she really be a decision maker? I would really want to target communication to her. But if she's not a decision maker, is she even an influencer? I'm not even sure about that at the moment. So a lot of these things happen, and this happened in Mumbai, and I was working for a kids television channel at that point in time, and we entered the chawl and with the client, and the household had a dog. The moment he saw the client, he jumped on the client and started chasing the client all around the chawl. So it was literally the client was running and the dog was running, and I was like, well, there's nothing really I can do about it, right? I can't control a dog running around people. But that's how things are. That's a reality of life which you have to accept. So it's sometimes really funny. But I'll tell you this incident which happened, which really makes me think that I always need to be on my toes.
Right.
Okay. This is actually a very fairly personal incident. So I'm 31 and I'm not married by choice. So
here we have Utsav.
What,
the proposition.
Yeah, I would like to do like be my Tinder buddy and like wingman, and you will like.
No, he's 31 and he's unmarried by choice. Just saying. Anyway,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So it's a choice I'm very happy about. So this happened about a couple of years ago, and I have an elder sister who's getting married. So my mom asked me this question that, okay, what are you thinking? What I was like, yeah, it's something which I have on my mind, but not right away. So I had this discussion, and the next day she asked me the exact same question, and I'm like, well, it's not like what I want to eat. No, I'm just not going to change immediately. This is a thought through idea. So a week goes by, and I just come back from office. I have literally turned the key to the house, and I see her sitting on the sofa. And then she says the worst line that you don't want to hear from anyone. It's like, "Baito, हमें बात करनी है." That we need to talk. You don't want that line from your boss, from your girlfriend, from your parents, anyone.
You don't have one.
Yeah. Thank you for reminding me that. So, with the most straight face, I mean, my mom is 60 years old, okay, and she comes from UP and a very different background. With the most straight face, she asks me, "Beta, kya tum gay ho?" Okay. I actually fell off my chair laughing at that question. But what you should realize is that in this.
But that's amazing.
It's amazing, It's
amazing
the fact that she could break that barrier of awkwardness between an Indian parent and a child to have a conversation about sexuality.
Right.
And also asking that your own son that are you gay is a very, very difficult thing to do. But you have to understand that there are things which are changing. And your everyday conversations will inform you about how things are changing. I'm not saying my mother is representative of Indian parents. I know that she's not.
Right.
She is probably a little ahead of the curve, and I'm very happy and proud of her for that. But that's what. So when it comes to research, it's just not about, sitting in an office, AC office, trying to understand things, designing a survey, sending out people to do it. You have to interact with people at every level. And it should be so ingrained that it's a part of how you think and view the world. And that's what really makes it an interesting course, and it makes an interesting person to be a great researcher.
So then, the question that comes up now is, with social media specifically, and given that our social media feeds are customized to what we want to see.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think they distort our view of the world? Because essentially, like everyone says, they are echo chambers because you are meeting people of your age on social media, probably also same socio-economic class, talking about the same things. I mean, for example, in the last 2-3 years, I just don't know of a single batchmate of mine who's not been to Europe. Maybe before that used to be Goa.
Yeah.
I think Europe has become like the new Goa.
Correct.
But I do feel that that's probably not true of majority of the country. So do you think that again? Do you think, for example, researchers or managers are likely to get that bias because of what they see on their customized social media feed?
Right. So the thing is that it's very interesting you bring it out because I was doing this research on urban affluent youth, and we were noticing a trend. Okay. So 5 years ago, we are a country where most of us don't know what we want to do with our lives, right? So we get into a degree, get an MBA, and for example, India is a country which figures out after graduation what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because graduation is pretty much decided कि यार if you want a career you become a doctor and an engineer. And anyways, commerce and arts liya, to life is anyways a waste for you. This is a country, what a country.
I am a commerce graduate.
I'm an engineer, not very proud of it, but I
am very proud of the fact that I didn't become an engineer. I think I had a ball in college. Anyway, yeah, go ahead.
Hey, engineers also have a ball in college, okay? Please don't think that we don't have a good time. Okay, so yeah,
I didn't take any entrance exam in 12th standard. Anyway, go ahead.
So okay, so my point being that, so what happens is that because they feel so dissatisfied at work, they find other avenues to, keep themselves interested and keep themselves satisfied.
Right.
So 10 years ago, it was buying a DSLR. Everyone had a photography page. Everyone bought a DSLR. 2 years ago, it was, I will run a marathon. Okay. Now, I will become a traveler. Every 3 years, there is a change in trend. What we are trying to do here is, we are trying to fill that void in our lives. But because we are sometimes so bereft of original ideas, we use our echo chambers to take inspiration.
Right.
Because we feel that, अरे यार DSLR लेके सब photo खींचते यार, मतलब you will go to Churchgate and take a photo.
That's the cool thing to do.
That's a cool thing to do. So yeah, I mean,
but this is again, you're talking about a very small minority of.
Correct. So that's what I'm coming to now. That by looking at your own social media feeds, you are getting a very, very narrow and constricted view of the world.
Right.
Which is sometimes so far detached from reality. So if you actually end up on Twitter, the kind of issues people talk to Twitter on the road, people are least bothered about it. No one cares. At this point, the whole Sonu Nigam controversy, you talk to people on the road, they do not care whether Sonu Nigam decides to shave his head or not. They have far bigger and pressing concerns in life to worry about. So there's definitely a danger of researchers getting influenced by the echo chambers, and you have to make a very conscious effort to break out of it. That's why I keep saying that go back to your consumers, keep an ear to the ground, keep your eyes and ears open, go and engage out of your own comfort zone. It's very easy for me and you to talk because we come from similar backgrounds, right?
Yeah.
But can I have a free-flowing conversation like this with, let's say, the guy who delivers sabzi at my home? He lives a very different life. But I should be, as a researcher, I should be able to get into his life in as much detail as I could do with a friend.
So, Utsav, finally, coming to, when people join this particular career,
right.
And I think everybody who joins in, I think everyone who I've ever spoken to says that I thought that my job would be something else, but when I joined in, it was completely something else. So, what has been your experience, when you hired people and when they've joined your companies, and what is it that people should expect?
That's true for anyone who is coming out. See, our education system doesn't really give us any tangible skills to begin with, which is why I think Konversations exists, right?
Exactly.
So, yes, so I think it's a very good space you guys are working in. So the fact is, when you come in, we accept the fact that you do not know anything, right? But we expect you to come with a positive attitude and that you are willing to learn, because we are willing to sit down with you.
ये तो बहुत ज्ञानी है.
नहीं ज्ञानी नहीं है, trust me, it is
positive attitude, willing to learn. सब लोग वही बोलेंगे ना कि मैं positive.
नहीं, वो दिख जाता है. 2 हफ्ते में you get to know whether how much of it is faff and how much of it is actually happening. So for example, as a researcher, you have to do grunt work, okay? Which means that you have to first go on field, understand how interviews are done, understand how to go up to talk to someone. So this was happened, in fact, in my first week of training, I was supposed to go and interview 2 men about their condom usage. I am walking up to a random guy, and we are a homophobic country.
Correct.
Okay, so one guy talking to you about the condom usage is immediately going to repel him off. Like, dude, like, get away, dude, like, please. Okay, it takes a lot of courage to do that. To walk up to a guy on the street and talk to him.
Courageous Utsav.
Yes, please be courageous as researchers. So that's something which you should be willing to do. Willing to put yourself out of your comfort zone and learn things from scratch. Second thing, and I say it with utmost sincerity, you will not work on brand strategy when you start your job. Okay, I have been working in this business for almost 7 years. I have only started to look at brand strategy. Right? Brand strategy is something which is complex, and you need to understand the business really, really well to be able to do brand strategy. So it sounds very fancy, and if any of you are pursuing your MBA right now, no matter where you end up in your job, you will never work on brand strategy in the first 5 years of your job. It's a given. Okay, and if you are, you should worry about the company, because the company doesn't really know what it's doing. So even after doing the course, you may feel that okay, market research is not the way for me. The way the world is changing so quickly, you need to be curious, and that's a fundamental thing you need to understand. You need to think better, you need to access more things, and honestly, if nothing else, I wish that whole idea or philosophy is my takeaway for you from the course. That if you can get into that mindset of seeing and noticing things around you, that will make you so much better and it will give you an edge over everyone you're competing with.
Okay, thank you guys. Next time we'll have somebody else in the Conversations cave, our gufa. Thank you, Utsav.
Thank you
It
so much,
was
Ankit, for
a
having me.
pleasure.